We just wrapped up the 13th driest May on record across North Carolina, averaging only about 2 inches of rain for the whole month across the state. Again, 13 driest in over 100 years. So to help us break down some of these impacts and what this means for us, we've got live this morning North Carolina's State Climatologist Dr. Kathie Dello. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. Take us back a little bit. Kind of tell us, give us some of the stats and facts. How did we get here? I mean, it was a spring drought. We typically see this in summer. So help us break that down a little bit.
Yeah, how did we get here? Anybody who's lived in North Carolina for the past 2 years has known it's been really, really wet. We came off North Carolina's second wettest year on record in 2020 and had this just extremely wet winter. And then the spigot turned off and we had this super dry spring. So when we got into May, all of that moisture that we had built up over the past year and in the winter had started to deplete. So our stream flows were lower, our soil moisture was lower, and then we started to talk drought again for the first time in 2 years. It's a little bit early, but if we think back to 2007, which was our drought of record, we were well into drought conditions by May.
Who does this impact, right? I often think about agriculture when it comes to drought. You know, it's not just, oh, your grass is going to be a little bit brown this month, or you might have to turn off the water while you're brushing your teeth, right? Talk a little bit about those impacts across the state.
Yeah, so certainly agriculture. And when we came off that very wet winter, farmers couldn't get in to plant their crops because the soil was so wet. And then we went to the other extreme very quickly. There wasn't enough water for crops. We're at the point in the year where if things turn around, and they certainly did this weekend, and I know we'll chat a little bit about that, we can recover from the dryness that we've seen in May. But it does impact all of us because we're paying for food. Some places right now on the coast have voluntary water restrictions. And yes, even our home gardens and our lawns are a little bit crunchy right now.
Crunchy, for sure. Good way to put it. Now, you mentioned we come off of one of the top wettest years on record, and now we're in drought. As a climatologist, what can you say about these extremes? We go from extreme wet to extreme dry. Is this our new normal, this just swing of the pendulum from one side to the other without much room in between?
Yeah, there's some indication in a warming climate that our extremes are just getting more extremes on both sides of the coin. And we know that North Carolina is getting wetter, and we've seen this in our precipitation patterns. But where we're really seeing it is in these extreme events that we're getting. And I know that the Charlotte area got an extreme event yesterday. So when you add up all those extreme events, you tend to get a really wet year. But what happens in between? We see these dry periods or these flash droughts emerge sometimes.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to get your insight as we are going to head into my forecast, right? We've got this unsettled pattern. We've got these spotty showers and storms. Yesterday, parts of Mecklenburg County got 5 inches of rain in literally like 2 hours. So that's what you were talking about, some of those extreme periods. Does that help these drought conditions, getting 5 inches in 2 hours and then nothing for the rest of the week? Does that help it or does that hurt it?
It helps a little. So we saw stream flows get boosted with the rain, and we got a couple inches here in downtown Raleigh as well. But we would rather have the rain spread out over kind of a more logical pattern and not just dumping on us, especially on dry soils that need the moisture. But I think we will start to see some improvements in our drought map this week just because the coast and many parts of the state, especially eastern North Carolina, got quite a bit of rain.
Some good news from Dr. Dello this morning, our state climatologist. Thank you so much for your time and expertise this morning.
Thanks for having me.